Detached involvement, which I am going to define in just a minute, can be very beneficial depending on the context it's used in. This is very key. For us to practice detached involvement can help us manage our emotions and maintain our well-being at work in difficult situations. Managing our emotions at work so we can maintain our well-being at work means, and this is not an easy thing, finding the balance between being emotionally supportive of our colleagues, our employees, our bosses, our customers, while also being able to be detached emotionally when needed. That means when an employee unexpectedly erupts on us, for example, we can choose in that moment, if we are in the mindset of detached involvement, to not get annoyed. We can actually make that choice. We can also make the choice to not get very frustrated. Therefore, as it progresses, we can make the choice, no matter what kind of eruption is happening, to not be very angry. Instead, when we practice the detached involvement in the right way, we can choose to be professionally curious. Like, what is this person experiencing right now that's causing them to react the way that they react? That professional curiosity happens if we can detach emotionally. It doesn't mean we push them away or kept a distance, but it means that we can be in control in that moment of our emotions. So I want to talk now about very specific good, very specific bad, and very specific ugly of detached involvement. And for those of you who know me in my coaching, I personally don't like to look at things as per se good or bad, but since I am such a huge fan of Clint Eastwood, and specifically one of his earliest movies, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which was the Sierra Leone spaghetti Western. It's called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I thought it was a perfect framework for this. So this is a little nod to Clint Eastwood. Let's get into the specifics of the good of detached involvement. And this is the definition. This might be new for you to comprehend because it is so unique. The ability to both participate in while simultaneously observe our own life. So we can be a performer on the stage, experiencing our life, and also sitting in the audience observing the performance. In this case, I'm directly talking about participating in and observing at work, but this obviously makes sense for us in our personal life, in our personal relationships, at home. When we are both a participant and an observer simultaneously, we can see all of our experiences as part of God's plan without judging if the experience is good or bad, right or wrong. Okay, irregardless of the title of our session today. We simply remain in control of our responses to the situation in that moment when we can step back and say, okay, right now I'm going to observe what's happening. Instead of I'm on the stage, acting in my own play. That means we're fully involved, but detached from the outcome. So think about this. God, if you could just let this thing go the way that I want it to, then I'll be happy. Obviously, that doesn't make sense to us when we hear it said like that. The outcome does not determine whether we're happy or not. As Christians, this is especially true. As Christians, this is powerfully true. We don't bargain with God in this way. God, I will be like you want me to be if you give me what I want. This is Isaiah 45:9. Woe to the one who quarrels with his maker, a piece of pottery among other earthenware pottery pieces. Will the clay say to the potter, what are you doing? We are all little clay pots. Some of us made nicer looking than others, some of us more functional than others, but that is who we are. We are clay in the hands of the maker. And when we use detached involvement in a righteous way, in a good way, then we can say, hey, God, your will be done. This is kind of like the saying, when life, I'm going to use air quotes here because I think it's part of God's plan, but when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Another one is, every cloud has a silver lining. This is the idea that we anticipate there is sunshine waiting just on the other side of the clouds that are in front of me, and we can see it peeking out by the cool little white silver line around the edge of the cloud. We're looking for the future good. This, I personally believe, is the essence of Ecclesiastes 7:14. When times are good, be happy, but when times are bad, consider God has made one as well as the other. Therefore, no one can discover anything about their future. I do not personally believe this is saying, when times are good, be happy. When things are not going good, suck it up, because God is responsible for both. I think it would say that if the last sentence weren't here, therefore no one can discover anything about their future. But that little piece, I believe, tells us ultimately, why does it matter? Don't look at it. Don't try to figure out if it's good or bad. The future will reveal itself when the future comes. Either way, God's in control. So if we spend time trying to figure out, why is this happening? God, why are you doing this? We're wasting our time, and we're not detached and involved. So here's a really quick few simple reminders on how to practice detached involvement, and we can discuss it way more later. This is the good way, the detached involvement. Take nothing personally. Make no assumptions. Reserve judgment. Let go of the idea that we are somehow in control. Be passionate and give our all, no matter what is happening in the moment. And ignore future outcomes. So the saying that I'll leave it cleanly with, we never want to attach our emotions to the outcome of any situation. That is detached involvement. And for us as disciples, we have a higher calling right from Jesus. It's not the pursuit of riches or happiness or comfort or ease or efficiency or cars or big job titles or whatever. Our focus is to follow Christ and be an example for others. Matthew 5:16. Your light must shine before people in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. This is what Jesus came here to teach us how to do. Glorify God while we meander this earth and leave the rest up to the grace of Christ, including the things that we might have messed up. Let our light shine. We're not in control. God has a plan. The future will reveal that plan, and in the moment we can just shine. That's detached involvement. The result of it, using it in a good way, is we don't let our emotions rule over us over work. And for those that are leaders, and this is a segment of what I'm talking to, who I'm talking to today is leadership. When we use detached involvement as leaders, we can still give support to our employees and distribute constructive criticism, because we're not taking things personally. We can help them with their growth-oriented strategies, which is, I think you would agree, better for all parties involved. If people are grouching around us, they're not happy to be there for whatever their reasons are, we're detached emotionally, but still involved in their lives. We can still help them, be a light for them, encourage, support them, and even instruct them while keeping balanced and steady. That's the good. Now, let's take a look at the bad of bad. I'm using air quotes again. It's called emotional detachment. And there are two avenues to this. One of the avenues, it's an actual, real, literal psychological condition. In the psychological condition, a person is literally not able to fully engage with their feelings or the feelings of others. They can't. In the other one, the second part or the second path of emotional attachment is someone is deliberately unwilling to fully engage with their feelings or the feelings of others. It's an unwillingness. One, they can't help it. The other, they're not wanting to. It can be ongoing. Obviously, it's going to always be ongoing if it's pathological, if it's something that it's psychological, that you can't help. It'll be long-term and ongoing. But even for people who are unwilling to adapt to the feelings of others, to engage in people's feelings, it can be a temporary response to extreme situation at work. And if the culture of the company that you work for is a little caustic, that might stretch on and on and on and on and be the way that you actually go to work and show up at work. I'm just not going to get emotionally attached to these things. I hate this culture. And it manifests as someone with little to no emotion, empathy, or connection. A very quick, more common way of saying it is emotional unavailability. Okay. This is not just men that are like this, although it can be very, very easy for men to get into this mode. It can be anybody, but the person who is detached in this way doesn't respond to the emotional needs or emotional cues from other employees, our bosses, our colleagues, or even our customers. Remember, two paths. One, they can't psychologically, and the other, they deliberately choose not to. This is the persistent difficulty in expressing or handling emotions, or the persistent intention to express or handle emotions. Getting to the appropriate level of professional closeness isn't happening. And if you've ever seen this show, I really enjoyed this TV show called Dexter. It's pretty famous. It's been many years now since it was on, but it brilliantly highlights how someone with a real detachment disorder, in his case, it was psychopathy. He was a psychopath. He did a job for the police. He was a crime scene blood spatter analyst. But because he has this psychopathy and wants to fit in, he tries to act like he cares for his work colleagues. And man, they nail it. It's brilliant. He can't, and he knows he can't, but he tries to, and it's crazy. Yes, psychopathy is an extreme example, and that's the one that they can't help. That's the bad. But the one where they can and they choose to is actually known as stoicism. There are people, unfortunately, that have deeply bought into this idea of stoicism. It has really had a massive resurgence in the last 4 or 5 years. The Daily Stoic is a podcast that gets tens of millions of downloads every month. It is about emotional unavailability. If you looked up, is stoicism about emotional unavailability or emotional detachment, you will see a bunch of Stoics go, hey, we've been fighting this for decades. Actually, I read an article before this where a Stoic said, we've been fighting this misconception for 1,000 years. Okay, if I was speaking to that person, or if you're one of the people that think, yeah, you know what, I've been practicing Stoicism and it's not like that, Shawn. Let me quote Epictetus, one of the most well-known Stoics. He was a Stoic philosopher actually in Rome, very prominent, very successful, and his teachings kind of last on to this day. Here's one of them. He argues that to be happy, you must detach from the things and the people you love. If you kiss your own child or wife, say to yourself that you are kissing a human being. For when they die, you will not be disturbed. Believe me, this is one of 100 quotes I could get where Stoics say, just pretend everything around you is inanimate. Don't show emotion. Don't let your body feel emotion. Don't express it, and you will be strong. You'll be able to make decisions and be a great leader. This is Marcus Aurelius, another one of the most famous Stoics from before Christ. This, I think, has manifested in the workplace in the bad way as the talk to the hand vibe that we get from people who practice it. Or if, and this is what I'm talking to with us, if you've been trying to be detached but still involved, you might think, yeah, talk to the hand is the way to go. People that are in this mindset often believe it's better for everybody if I just don't connect with anybody. Everyone wins. I'm not going to make any trouble for anyone, and you're not going to make trouble for me. That's the mantra. But Stoicism is not at all how Jesus did it. He got emotionally involved. If you've not ever done this, I recommend it. It's kind of cool. Just type in, when did Jesus show emotion? Way more times than we realize. It's a really cool little thing. This painting here, I forget the name of the artist. I might look it up just because I love this little piece. This is the John 11:35, Jesus wept moment, when he witnessed Mary and Martha grieving deeply over the loss of their brother Lazarus. Stoicism is bad detached involvement. Now let's take a quick look, finish up with the ugly of detached involvement, passive aggression. At least the kind where someone seems to be holding it together, smiling on the outside, unaffected, but in the inside, they are falling apart. It's a mask. It's a cover-up, a disguise, because they have this intense emotion. But they've learned over time, okay, I do know showing emotion at work isn't best, so I'm just going to hold it together. But inside, what's still happening is the wheels are cranking, and they're saying basically, I know I act like I'm not affected by you, but secretly I despise you. Okay, passive-aggressive choices in the moment seem like a good alternative to getting emotional, but it's really ugly. We do not want to let that become our pattern or our habit or even our go-to strategy. I mean, if we're at the point where we want to punch somebody and then we think, oh yeah, I'll just be passive aggressive instead, believe me, there are things that we want to go way upstream and work on before it gets to that. Passive aggression says things like this: when life gives you lemons, make lemonade and then throw it in the face of the person who gave you the lemons until they give you the oranges you originally asked for. That's passive aggressive. Now, it's not saying throw, citrus acid into people's eyeballs and make them hurt, but it's the inner seething that goes on. Here's another one. The old saying is that when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I say, forget that. When life gives you lemons, make margaritas. This is the I'll show you, I'll hurt me. It's so subtle because we think, oh, I'm living a good life if I can just sip on margaritas and not let things affect me. Or the ever popular, commercials and movies constantly where everybody's gathered around with these gigantic wine bowls on these glass sticks and just dumping red wine into their throat. This is ugly detachment. We think we're tough, that we're not letting anything affect us, but we slink off and behave destructively. Or how about this one? When life gives you lemons, forget the lemonade, make a rich lemon cheesecake, blame your boss on the extra pounds. Very same thing. I'll show you, I'll hurt me. We're eating our emotions. That, holding it together at work long enough just so we can get home and act out that's ugly. That will result in passive aggressive behavior choices. This is Proverbs 25:28, which I love. It's so deep and profound. Like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. We know that when we lack self-control, it shows a weakness to those around us. We think we're being strong when we're passive-aggressive, but we've lost control really. And we're doing our best to keep the walls up, but they've already crumbled and people can see it. Passive-aggressive doesn't get by anybody. We think it does. Okay. Ultimately, these are the three: the good, detached involvement; the bad, emotional detachment; and the ugly, passive aggression. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for 2 new videos each week. Tell me in the comments below about your career situation, and I'll make a video for you with a shout out. You can also become a member at Motivationeer.com. Your career is not just a way to make a living, it's a way to transform the world.